All right, we're going to start out with leading coefficient of 1. Okay, so leading coefficient equals 1 on these. So it's going to be the straightforward, simple ones. They will be in the form of x squared plus a bx plus a c. And the b is going to be any number. The c is going to be any number. And my signs can be plus, plus, minus, minus, plus, minus, and minus, plus. Doesn't make any difference. Okay, so again, these tend to be the easier ones. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to initially pretend like you have no clue how to factor this at all because it's been too long. All right, you can be very systematic and you can create a nice little box and do your trial and error very systematically so you don't miss anything. All right, but after a while, you're not going to make that box and you're just going to be able to do this. Okay, a trinomial such as x squared plus 7x plus 12 will always factor into two binomials. So I know I have to set it up like this, a binomial times a binomial. If you think FOIL, if I had this and I FOILed it out, I should again get back my original thing. Since I have x squared here, that means this term and this term has to be an x and an x. All right, because that's the only way I can multiply first terms and get an x squared. So I know those are going to be there. Now, for those people that want the systematic way to do this, okay, you can make, here, let's do it down here. I am going to come up with numbers that multiply or have a product of this number right here, which is 12. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across and I'm going to add them. I want a sum equal to this number. Okay, so a sum of this number, a product of that number. And then you just go through and you say, okay, well, what are all the factors of 12? Well, and specifically a positive 12. I could do 1 times 12. All right, I could also do 2 times 6. I could also do 3 times 4. So you see how this is very systematic. If I write all of my factors of 12, all of the numbers that multiply together to be 12, these are my only possibilities for my answer up here. Now, I want to add going across. So 1 plus 12 is 13. All right, that's not going to work because I'm looking for a 7. 6 plus 2, that's going to give me an 8. Well, that's not going to work because I'm looking for a 7. All right, 3 plus 4 is 7, so it works. All right, so doing it this way for those people that want concrete way to come up with the answers, this works. All right, and then so one of them, and it doesn't matter the order which I put it in there, plus 3 and plus 4 because they're both positive. All right, so then that's your factored answer. All right, but like I said, people generally don't do this because you can do it in your head. You can go 1 times 12. Oh, 1 and 12 is not going to give me a 7. You could do 2 times 6. Oh, but 2 and 6 is, even if I add them or I subtract them, I'm not going to get a 7. So you will get good at this, okay? Now, let's go ahead and do a check. All right, if you're going to do your check, you definitely need to clarify on your paper you're checking because that's the answer right there. I would check this using FOIL. Okay, so I would check using FOIL. So in other words, multiply first terms. X times x is x squared. Outside terms would be the 4x. Inside terms would be 3x. Last terms, 3 times 4 is going to be 12. And then I can put those two together. So I get the x squared plus the 7x plus the 12. So yep, it checks. All right, and again, a lot of people just check right here. X times x, x squared. 3 times 4 is 12. All right, and then if you can do 3x plus another 4x, that gives me the 7x. That's the inside and outside terms. So most of the people don't have to write it out when it's FOIL. All right, now I went through a lot of detail on that one. All right, and so I won't go through as much detail going through on the next one. Okay, so let's suppose we had like an x squared minus a 14x and then plus a 24. All right, so every one of them in this section is going to have that leading coefficient of 1, x squared. So that means I'm going to start it out. I'll have an x and an x. I know that every time. X times x is x squared. So now think about, and if you want to still be systematic without drawing that whole entire table, all right, well, what? We got 1 times 24. We got 2 times 12. Ooh, as soon as you get to 2 and 12, those numbers, like if I add them, I'm going to get a 14. All right, that's probably going to be a possibility. But now I got to make sure my signs match. There are all kinds of charts out there on the internet if you want to try to memorize the signs, because when you have like a minus first and then a plus, it's always going to be the same thing. But generally, I just like for you to just think it through and process what it's going to be. Clearly, my two numbers have to be 2 and 12. Okay. It doesn't matter which one you put where. I can put the 2 here. I can put the 12 there. I can put it opposite spots. Now, I need a positive 24. So that means they're either going to both be positive or they're both going to be negative. But in the middle, I need a negative 14. So the only way to get that negative 14 in the middle is if they're both negative, because then I would be adding a negative 2 and a negative 12, which will give me the negative 14. All right. So again, if I was going to FOIL this out, negative 2 times negative 12 gives me the positive 24. Negative times negative is positive. Negative 2 and a negative 12 give me the negative 14 in the middle. Okay, so see, you can do it without making the whole great big long chart. Kind of turns out kind of simple that way. Are we all good so far? We all good so far? Let's do another one where maybe I have to subtract or do something. Let's try 2 minus signs. Let's do like an x squared and then minus a 4x and then minus a 21. Let's do this one. Okay, so again, leading coefficient of 1. So we know it's going to be x. We know it's going to be x. All right, so again, if I start working with 21, I don't have a lot of factors to choose from. What, 1 and 21, 3 and 7. Actually, those are about the only factors up, 21. Okay, so I know it's going to be 3 and 7 because 3 and 7, if I can subtract them, I'm going to have a 4, right? So one of the numbers will be a 7, one of them will be a 3. Okay, now, I'm going to need a negative 21. So that means they have to be opposite signs. It's the only way I can get a negative 21. So I'm going to have 1 plus and 1 minus. Now the choice is, where do you put them? Where do we put what? Where? Okay, well, think about how you're going to generate that middle term. I'm going to multiply these two and multiply those two and then add them up. So if I need a negative 4, then that means the larger number has to be the negative 1. So that has to be a negative 7. That has to be a positive 3. And if we did that, there's my 3x. There's the negative 7x. When I add those, I do get a negative 4x. Okay, so I'm hoping that this is pretty good for people. Okay. If not, somebody's got to say something. Okay. All right. I don't know if I want to do, let's keep going with letters and then I'll go back to the graphing calculator in a minute. So don't forget to let me go back there. All right, those were all single variables. That's all high school algebra 1. You do that again in algebra 2, but then we're going to bump you up to 2 variables. Okay, so this is 2 variables. So same concept, just 2 variables. All right, so nothing's going to change except I got an extra letter in here. So I could have something like, let's say, an x squared minus an 18xy plus a 45y squared. All right, so now I got 2 sets of variables. I got x's, I got y's. All right, but I still have a leading coefficient of 1. I still have a leading coefficient of 1. So that means my first terms aren't going to change. I'm still going to factor into 2 binomials. I know I have an x and I know I have an x because x times x is x squared on my first ones. Now, to get a y squared here, I better have y's here, right? Because I'm going to take this, I take this term times this term, and that gets me this. So here times here, the only way to do that is if I have y's in both those spots. So if you wanted, you could put your letters in and then put your y's in, and then that's just like setting up here. And then all I got to do is come up with those 2 numbers that go here. All right, so 45, not as nice here. Let's see, 1 times 45 is not going to get me, if I do 1 to 45, that's not going to get me 18. 2 won't go into it. 5 does. 5 and 9 goes into 45, but 5 and 9 is not going to get me an 18. What else goes into 45? 3 and 15. 3 times 15 is 45. And 15 and 3, if I add them, I get my 18. Okay, so trial and error thinking those numbers through. So one of these coefficients will be 15. One of them is going to be 3. It doesn't matter the order that you put them in. You can put the 15 there. You can put the 3 there. Now I just got to figure out signs, right? This is like the one we did at the beginning. I need a negative 18. I've got to add these to get a negative 18. They both have to be negative. Okay. Negative times negative gives me the positive 45. And then this gives me a negative 15xy. This gives me a negative 3xy. Those are like terms. When I add them, I get the negative 18xy in the middle. Okay, so they're just going to throw in two variables like that. They like x and y. They like a and b. All right, let's go ahead and do, how am I doing on time? Oh, 22. I got plenty of time. So let's go do another one. All right, obviously the larger these numbers are, then the more challenging it is. If they're not large numbers, then we don't have, they're not bad. Let's do like an x squared plus a 17xy and then minus a 60y squared. Okay, again, 60, that's kind of big. There's going to be lots of factors for 60. But if you, here, I was just randomly trying to come up with factors of 45 on a number that's as big as 60. I might do it more systematically. Okay, let's set it up, though, like we did previously. Sometimes I get carried away and make that too wide. X and X there. I know it's got to be because X times X is X squared. This one has the Y squared, so I have to put in my Y's. And then I just got to worry about those coefficients. All right, now, like I said, 60 is a rather large number, so let's systematically do this. All right, so if I do 1 times 60, that's factors of 60, but I can't get a 17. If I do 2 and 30, 2 times 30 is 60, but I can't get a 17. All right, if I do 3 and 20, 3 times 20 is 60, then I hit it pretty quickly here. I can get a 17 here if I subtract these two. All right, but when I say I'm going through and listing these systematically, 1, 2, 3, then I'm going to see if 4 goes into 60, then I would see if 5 goes into 60. I would list, I'm going numerically here for my trial and error. Okay, just makes it a little bit faster on a larger number. Okay, so I know that it's got to be a 3 and a 20. Again, I don't care where we put them. We could put the 20 here. We could put the 3 here. It doesn't matter. Okay, now I need a negative 60, which means I need unlike signs. So these have to be opposite signs. And then which number gets the positive, which number gets the negative. Take a look at that middle term. It's a positive one. So it means my positive number down here needs the positive. So this has to be a positive and this has to be a minus. That would give me, if I wanted to check here a little bit, if I multiply there, I would have a 20xy. If I multiplied here, I would have a negative 3xy. Those are like terms. When I add them, I get the positive xy. All right, so obviously I don't do all that. You do that, most of that check in your head. Okay, you do most of your check in your head right there. Okay, so we okay with two variables. All right, these are very, very beginning factoring trinomials, very easy problems here. All right, so what I would like to do